Martin. He's editor-at-large at American Media. He's written several books, including The Jesuit Guide to Almost Everything. Father, it's good to have you with us this hour. I'd just love to get your reaction to that image that the president posted and then deleted. He, of course, has said, as you just heard, he thought this was him being, depicted as a doctor. Not everyone sees that as a doctor. What do you make of this, both this image and the backlash to it in this moment?
Yeah, I don't know too many doctors that have glowing hands. So that's the most Jesus-looking picture I think I could imagine. And I think it was pretty shocking to me that someone would put themselves in the place of Jesus. And as your reporter was just saying, it came after he had just been tweeting out a pretty hateful attack on Pope Leo. So obviously religion was on his mind last night, and that probably came from watching the 60 Minutes special with the three cardinals. So I guess he was, thinking about religion, and that's what came out.
It's interesting you mentioned that 60 Minutes special with the three cardinals at the very end. One of them says that, having worked with 4 different popes, he believes each one was there at that moment for a reason, that Pope Leo is, in fact, the right person to be pope in this moment. Do you agree?
Oh, sure. I think he's doing a great job. And it's not just, having to do with political issues, but he's turning our attention to the poor and to the marginalized. He's asking the church to become more united. And, as we speak, he's visiting Algeria, visiting a small group of Catholics in a, largely poor country. So I think he's doing a wonderful job, and he is the right person for the time.
Part of what the president was criticizing him for is that, in the president's word, he's weak on crime, also on foreign affairs. This morning, the Pope responded saying, "I have no fear of the Trump administration," also saying, "I do not look at my role as being political or politician. I don't want to get into a debate with him." How do you think Pope Leo is changing the conversation in this moment? You noted what we'll be seeing and hearing more of him over the course of the next few days with this trip to Africa. But even beyond that, he's certainly changed the conversation over this past year.
Well, I think he's focusing us on gospel values, real gospel values. And when it comes to, for example, migrants and refugees, he's reminding us that Jesus says we have to welcome the stranger. But more recently, he's reminding us that Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers," right? Not blessed are the warmongers. And after the resurrection, his message to the disciples is peace be with you. So you can't get away from the message of peace from Jesus, nor can you get away from the message of helping the poor. And these are gospel topics; they're not political topics.
Yet, as I'm sure you're well aware, religion has also often been turned into politics. It's interesting, too, in this moment when you have the Secretary of Defense, who is a man of faith, who talks about his faith often. Those comments from Pope Leo about war and about prayers for war seem to be directly in response to what we've heard from Secretary Hegseth over the last several weeks in terms of his justification for this war. How do you square those remarks?
Well, I think it's important to say that, Leo is very careful about not mentioning people's names like Secretary Hegseth and President Trump unless he's asked directly. His remarks a couple days ago, around Easter, were about peace in general and about war in general. So I think it's good. This is, he has to speak about peace. He's the Pope. And again, Jesus says, peace be with you. So if he didn't speak about peace during a time of war, I think he would be, really negligent in his duties as Pope. But he's doing a great job.
It's certainly getting a conversation going. We know that. I'm curious, though, what do you think the conversation is among American Catholics as they're watching all of this play out? What are you hearing from them?
Well, I would say that both, Republicans and Democrats are really shocked by President Trump's attack last night. I mean, that was really beyond the pale. And I heard from people from, all sides of the political spectrum and the theological spectrum as well. So that was really beyond the pale and really kind of unique in history for such a uncharitable, unchristian, and, really unhinged attack on the Holy Father.
Father James Martin, really appreciate the time today. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Still to come here.